Hello, Huskers fans. This is the Nebraska Shootaround podcast, which I'm assuming you already know if you clicked on it and are listening. I am your host, Jacob Padilla, the men's basketball beat writer for Varsity. And joining me as always is my co-host, Jacob Bigelow, a contributor to Huskers Illustrated. Bigelow, how you doing out there? On the road this week.
I know, live on location. Shout out to my childhood friend Matt. I'm currently reporting from his bedroom in Denver. Yeah, I'll be in the building on Sunday for the exhibition with Colorado. So worked out nicely. I was already planning on sneaking out here, and then they had this exhibition on Sunday. So I'm like, you know what? Why not kill two birds with one stone? See some friends, get away for a couple days, and watch some basketball in person. So here we are.
Yeah, and as a true professional, brought the podcast equipment on the road. We did not originally plan for to be recording this late in the week, but as we record this on Friday afternoon, but it's kind of worked out that way. And he said, now good to have you kind of reporting on location here as Nebraska is gearing up to head out to Boulder for their charity exhibition.
Absolutely. Gotta adjust, work with what you got. We had some late night volleyball on Wednesday, and then I traveled yesterday, so we made the adjustment. But here we are, and we can talk about one exhibition and kind of preview another, and then it's the regular time to look forward to the regular season. It's crazy.
Yeah, man, we'll have a full week to kind of digest everything we've seen from these first two games and get ready for that season opener. But first, yeah, like you said, let's kind of look back. We got to see this team actually play basketball, which was nice. It's been a while. It was the exhibition against Chadron State. Got up to a bit of a slow start to each half, but Nebraska ended up pulling away. That was an 87-60 final score. There's some encouraging signs, but a lot to work on both sides of the ball. Really, what the game came down to was, like I said, slow starts each half. Chadron State was up 7-3 to start the game. Nebraska's first, 5 possessions on offense were pretty rough. Then they settled in. Then they were up 15 at halftime, and then Chadron State opened the second half with a 10-1 run to cut it down to 6. But Nebraska responded and put together runs of 14-2 to jump ahead 23-11 early in the game. Then they had a 13-2 run after Chadron State made that run to pull it close to take a 57-40 lead. And then kind of the knockout blow was a 21-0 run. That made it 80-46. And at that point, Hoiberg kind of called out the dogs, sent in the deep bench, and let the walk-ons and young kids kind of finish out the last 5 minutes of the game. So bit of a game of runs there. It's kind of, for stretches they look really good, for stretches like just kind of right at the top. Any general takeaways? We'll get into a few topics that I mentioned before we started here that I want to hit on, but anything right at the top that jumped out to you that you want to mention?
Well, it was kind of Juwan Gary Day. Yeah. As I mentioned going into last week, they ain't never seen a player like Juwan Gary, end quote, Juwan Gary. And then he came out, and I don't know what the talking points would be if he wasn't out there, man. We heard all offseason about his dog, junkyard dog persona, and yeah, it's an exhibition against a Division II team, but the way he was following his shot and fighting for rebounds, and I think he at least had 2, maybe 3 baskets where he missed his shot, followed his shot, got his own rebound, and put it back in. He lived up to the billing. I think you could definitely see the emphasis on defense. They were pretty active, looked a little scrambly at first, but it's exhibition play. It's their first time, playing someone other than themselves in practice. So it's, not a complete and total shock. And then just Sam Griesel being Mr. Level-headed, Mr. Level-headed, easygoing, straw that stirs the drink point guard, and he killed a man. So that too. So those were my big takeaways.
So those are the 3 kind of main talking points I had written down and I took notes on as well. I'll let you kind of steer the conversation here. Which one would you like me to expand on first? Gary, the defense, or Greasel?
Let's go defense first.
Okay. So yeah, you can definitely see kind of what their game plan is. They're chasing teams off the line of scrimmage or flying out. It's kind of a switch everything man / matchup zone. It's sometimes tough to see what exactly it is depending on situation, but you're seeing them jump switches, be aggressive, kind of jumping out to perimeter, chasing guys out to perimeter. I think that the goal is to try to force teams into kind of the mid-range area for pull-up jumpers, for floaters. They're funneling perimeter players towards the center, waiting in the paint a lot. So it kind of seems like the goal is to we want teams taking tough in between twos, which generally is a good game plan, and that's what you want to see from modern defenses. There's also, and Hoiberg kind of talked about it both on Sports Nightly, radio show on Tuesday, and then also when we heard from him earlier as I record this on Friday, just talking about how the personnel kind of fits and allows him to move the pickup point higher. Like you're not necessarily retreating back to the paint and trying to find somebody. They're okay picking up full court, 3/4 court, and putting a little bit of pressure on the opposing team to kind of run down the clock, force them to start their actions further away from the basket, put in some effort to get into their stuff. And Emmanuel Vanderbilt is the one that's kind of leading the charge there. And he told us during the offseason that that's what he likes to do. And we saw it in action. And then Denham Dawson is another guy that they're going to look at as kind of that pickup guy that can kind of put some pressure without getting beat in the open court. So those are kind of all some of the positives. They did cause a lot of turnovers. They got to be a little bit more efficient converting those turnovers into points than what we saw, but that was all the good. The bad is I don't think they executed the game plan super well or consistently in terms of the way that they were chasing guys off the line and funneling guys. There were just way too many like scramble situations, bad closeouts, line drives straight to the rim. And Blaise Keita and Derek Walker are both very good positionally. They put themselves in the right spots. They're good charge takers as centers, but that's not always going to work. And they really aren't shot blockers, either one of them. So if you're funneling opposing teams to your center and your center's 6'9" and not getting off the floor very well, Big Ten teams are going to be able to score on that, take advantage of that, go finish over the top, and then you're relying on hopefully getting a charge call there because you can't really impact things too much there, especially when you're giving up, again, the straight line drives as opposed to not really, as opposed to kind of chopping the steps and chase them off, but making them kind of take a roundabout route to the paint. And with that starting lineup, you're still seeing some slow feet out there. Some bad closeouts from Wilhelm Breitenbach, although he did have the nice blocking the three in the corner there. So that was cool. But outside of that, saw some bad closeouts where he just get blown by. Saw some slow closeouts from a guy like CJ Wilcher. Even Sam Greasel, some of the switches kind of put himself out of position because, again, you're a 6'7" guy trying to switch on to 6-foot guards that are maybe a little bit quicker. So we'll see with that starting lineup and how much they play together. I mean, I think I sent this to you, but I did kind of track the lineups, and that starting lineup shared the court for nearly 13 minutes. For reference, second most used lineup was out there for less than 5 minutes. So we saw a lot of the starting five playing together, and they got outscored by 5. And most of that was the 10-1 start to the second half, because at that point, Hoiberg kind of made an early sub and got Juwan Gary out there, and so that unit didn't really have a ton of time to dig themselves out of that hole. And early on, they kind of played a more even than what you would like to see. So that's how they end up with getting outscored by 5 in 13 minutes. So that's a work in progress. And Hoiberg said on Tuesday that it's going to take a little time for Breitenbach to get back up used to the speed of the game in real live competition. I mean, practices and even team scrimmages, it's just a completely different story than real live competitive basketball with stakes on the line, with the other team trying as hard and you're not necessarily knowing exactly what they're doing. So that's something to keep an eye on. Like, how does this starting five gel? Part of it, I think, CJ Wilcher had a bad offensive day, so that hurts. That's a lot of firepower in that starting lineup. And I think Sam Griesel did some of his work with some of the bench units as well, because he got going later on. We'll talk about that shortly here, but that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. And while I'm talking about the rotation, it was basically kind of what we expected. The first nine were that starting five, and then Keisei Tominaga and Juwan Gary were kind of the first subs. Blaise Keita got in there, and Denham Dawson as well was kind of the ninth man. So that's the top nine, and we saw that kind of roll with that rotation. And then throughout later on in the game, you saw a Ramel Lloyd mix in there. You saw Jamarcus Lawrence mix in there as kind of the 10th and 11th man. And I think that's what it's going to look like. We'll see that like we talked about, that backup guard spot. Tominaga kind of gets it, I think, by default as kind of the veteran in the group, being here last year, which gives him an advantage over everybody else. But can he hold on to that? We'll see. I thought Jamarcus Lawrence's stroke looked pretty good. Ramel did some interesting things. Was kind of, again, he's somewhat similar to some of the other guys that they have in terms of a longer guard that can play with good effort and do some things that way. Didn't really. We saw a nice little short pull up jumper from Ramel, and so it saw some things, but neither one of them showed a ton. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that shakes out. But that was at least the initial 9-man rotation that we kind of thought it might be. And so no surprises there. But yeah, that especially with the defense, like I think they've got to take some better angles. They've got to close out a little bit better. They maybe have to anticipate there were some guys just not in position kind of, or somewhat in position, but still got beat and put in the last final effort to cut off a guy or something like that. So it's a lot that they can polish up on the defensive end.
And that's what exhibition season and the early non-con is for, right? So, yeah, we not, like you said, no surprises really with the rotation. I said this to you when we were sitting next to each other at the game. I did like the perspective Hell in a Cell lineup with Gary Dawson and Bandamel on the floor at the same time. Whoever the other two were, who knows? But those guys got after it, I felt like, and I really you got to talk to Denham a little bit today. I really liked what I saw from him, man. And just in terms of, I think it was Michael Severe called them super calves on Twitter. That dude can jump. That dude, I mean, I think my biggest like red flag of sorts is this, at least the first group for this team is kind of slow. And I think to have a guy like Dawson who looks like a freak athlete, can jump out of the gym, and, you know, Hoiberg is touted as the kind of energy guy they want with his, you know, his effort on defense. I think that alone, you know, is going to give him a room to not just find a role, but see his role grow as we go on. My Chadron State overreaction would be to stock up on Denham Dawson stock if you can. That would be my big takeaway.
Yeah, and since you mentioned it, just looking at my notes, I think Bandamel, Dawson, and Gary shared the court for just under 2 minutes of game time and outscored Chadron State 5-0. So didn't give up a bucket in almost 2 minutes. So yeah, it was CJ Wilcher and then Jamarcus Lawrence were the guards, and then Blaise Keita was the 5. So those are the other guys that were in those lineups. But yeah, brief look at it, but yeah, didn't give up a bucket. So, but yeah, you mentioned stock up on Denham Dawson. The guy who talked, like, hearing from me, he hadn't, because of when he enrolled and left prep school at Nebraska, he went almost 2 years without playing an actual organized basketball game like that. Obviously, it's an exhibition, doesn't count, but that's the first actual non-scrimmage like that he's played in, the first game in front of fans, because they didn't even play pickup at the opening night deal. They just went through a practice with that. So first chance to really play basketball in a competitive environment in front of fans since his actual senior year, because he had planned to take a prep year and then kind of bail on that midway through to enroll at Nebraska. So I asked him about that you mentioned kind of flying in there, showing out the athleticism. First play was an offensive rebound where he kind of soared over the defense, ripped it down, and got tied up, but it was still an impressive athletic play, and got fouled once, split the free throws. And then his first actual bucket was, again, an offensive rebound, and then took it right back up, kind of an athletic and one up and under type of finish. Again, showing off the athleticism. And I asked him about what it felt like to score that first bucket, and he said he was actually talking with his parents beforehand about that. Like, what is my first bucket going to be? Like, what's that going to look like? And he said, like, in the game, he just kind of got lost in the flow of it and didn't even realize, like, oh, hey, that was my first bucket. But talked about it afterward and called it kind of a surreal feeling. So that's cool. The good things about these exhibitions is getting guys like that a chance to go out there and play. And
absolutely
same with Sam Hoiberg, who redshirted last year, to get a chance to get out there, and he got a bucket at the end, kind of put the finishing touches on the game there. Nice little take to the basket. So that definitely a positive take out of that. And a big positive is another guy like Dawson that brought some of the same things in Juwan Gary. And he finished with a game high 23 points, 9 rebounds. I believe 5 of those were offensive. Shot 9 of 17 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, and 3 of 3 from the free throw line. His career high at Alabama was 19, which he set twice. So first time in a Husker uniform, topped his career high. It was, caution you, it was against a Division II team. I don't think you can expect to have Juwan Gary be their leading scorer coming off the bench every game here, but it was definitely an encouraging sign. And I think even Sam said the way that Chadron State, I guess they must have watched the same tape that I did, the way they guarded him. He called it a little disrespectful because they were standing, his man was standing in the paint every time he caught it on the perimeter. And
like, you want to shoot that? Go right ahead.
And he, so first one, corner 3, wide open, flow of the offense, just rimmed out. Second one too, kind of another good look. It was pretty online, wasn't a brick by any means, just didn't quite fall. And for the most part, he took good threes. And Hoiberg said, hey, we changed some things with his shot. He's shooting pretty well on unguarded catch and shoot looks. So we want him taking those. And in the second half, I believe he was 0 for 3 in the first half. I think he missed his first in the second half. And then made 2 of his last 3. So finally got him to go. And part of that, one of those was during that kind of 13-2 run after Chadron State had cut it down to 6, where Sam Griesel kind of took over and scored some buckets and then set up Juwan in the corner for a left corner 3. And he knocked it down, bottom of the net. It's kind of a big time bucket there. So, I think he directly followed his own miss twice and then got another. I think he followed a putback of his miss for the third one. So he shot and missed. Somebody else, Denham, I think, got the rebound and missed. And then Juwan went and tapped it to himself and put it in. So he definitely lived up to the billing as far as kind of the dog, the offensive rebounder. I mean, half his rebounds last year were on the offensive side of the ball for Alabama. So that part of it, there were some good signs there too. In terms of what he showed, he had a nice little take where got it into the lane. Took a handoff, got into the lane and kind of pulled up for a nice little mid-range jumper. I don't know that that'll be regularly in his arsenal, but it's a good bucket. He kind of scored, got the ball in the post, kind of went to work, missed, but followed it up and scored again. had a nice play in transition where he got nobody stopped ball. He just kept going and drew a foul. So he scored in a variety of ways. It was good to see him kind of get that confidence and go out there and show what he's capable of. Again, I don't know. I still don't think that you're going to get a ton of offense out of him, but it was an encouraging first game, especially hearing about the growth offensively in terms of hitting open shots and Hoiberg being fine with him taking those. If teams are going to guard him like that, he's going to have to hit him, or they're going to have to find a different way to play him, because they weren't necessarily, I mean, they basically just played their base motion offense. Hoiberg, I think, said they had 2 set plays that they ran during the game.
One perimeter play, one post-up play.
Yep. And outside of that, it was just their basic ball movement, man movement, motion offense. And but you saw, like, Hoiberg did not scheme to play to Juwan's strengths. He just had him out there as one of the kind of 4 perimeter players. They didn't have him playing in the dunker spot. They didn't necessarily have him trying to play away from the ball. He was just out there just like everybody else. He was on the wing. He was in the corner. And if he's going to play that way, he's going to have to be able to shoot the open 3 with confidence if teams leave him. And so kind of a mixed bag in that regard, but knocking down 2 of them was definitely a good sign, I would say.
Definitely, and that was another thing you pointed out right away. After he missed the first 2, you're like, these aren't bad misses. Like they're close. Like this is, I completely agree. Like it was definitely encouraging to see. Definitely don't think he can be or should be like you said, your go-to like leading scorer as the first guy off the bench, but. In a year where the biggest question is where are points going to come from, it was good to see the potential for Gary to contribute on both ends of the court for sure.
Yeah, and the other guy in offense or in double figure scoring was Sam Griesel. Finished with 14 points on 6 of 9 shooting. Missed both his threes, but I thought they were both good shots. 2 of 4 from the free throw line. 7 assists to just 2 turnovers, and I think both those turnovers were pretty early on, and then 4 rebounds. And we kind of talked about like what's the backup point guard situation look like. Well, Sam was out there for 29 of the 35 like actual rotation minutes, so we only saw a very little bit of Emmanuel Bandomel running the point.
And even when it was kind of he was the de facto ball handler, it kind of seemed like, hey, if you want to initiate the offense, here's the ball, go ahead. Yeah. Like it wasn't like it was kind of. Anybody who wants to initiate can when Sam wasn't on the floor, it seemed like.
Yeah, exactly. But so I thought Sam really, you could tell, I think he was kind of, there were some nerves there and he's trying to figure out, all right, what do I need to do here early on? His first shot, way too much juice, kind of forced up a little half hook turning shot that threw almost entirely over the rim. And then after that, I think he kind of let the game come to him, settled into a rhythm. And as the game played on, he started being more impactful in terms of making plays and going to work. So the first couple of buckets were just kind of advantage situations where caught one in transition. It was a really nice finish, kind of up and under on the far side of the basket there. He had a take where offensive rebound kind of like Derek tipped it out to him. Then he put it on the deck once and went to the rim and finished. So got a couple easy ones early on, and then in the second half, again, I think confidence was building, is figuring out, all right, this is where my shots are going to come from. This is what they need from me. Had a really nice transition move where guy tried to kind of flop, try to take a charge. Like he spun off the first contact, like kind of went bodied up with the help defender and up and under left hand finish. Really nice play there. And then from there, I think he started to get more aggressive, and he really did take over that game after Chadron State cut it to 1. And had a nice kind of transition possession where they never stopped the ball, and he just kept going and finished. And then after that, he got a steal, In transition, he crossed up a defender and then went and dunked on the help defender that you mentioned, killed a man. Kind of I think the Trey McGowan special, just running down the lane, right hand back on the defender on the right side. It caught everybody off guard, I think, with that one. And then he had a nice play, run in a pick and roll, refused the screen, got downhill and kicked to Rashawn Gary in the kind of shooting pocket for that corner three.
You did it again. You called him Rashawn Gary.
Juwan Gary.
Packer brain. Packer brain.
And by doing it again, what happened was I had the first half of the Packers game on my phone while I was getting ready for this one for the exhibition on Sunday. And so Rashawn Gary, I typed Rashawn Gary instead of Juwan and caught myself before hitting send. But yeah, I just did that again. We're talking about the guy that plays for Nebraska, not the edge rusher for the Green Bay Packers. I wonder what his jump shot looks like. Anyway,
it's probably not pretty.
So yes, he found Juwan Gary for the corner three, and then kind of finished off that sequence, backing his man down and drawing a foul and hitting both free throws. So that was kind of that little stretch where that 13-2 run. Sam, I think, had 3 buckets plus an assist during that stretch there, and then it was kind of game over. Also had a really nice, and then from there it was just kind of all pick and roll. He had a really nice assist to Blaze Keto rolling to the rim. He had a pick and roll where the defender went underneath. He pulled up for the 3, didn't make it, but it was the right read. It was open for him. And then kind of his last play was a grab and go dump off to Juwan Gary for a transition dunk. Not Rashawn Gary, Juwan Gary. So that was kind of the end of Sam's day there, but nice impact the game in a lot of ways. And like I said, I think you could see him getting more comfortable, more confident, and more impactful as the game went on.
Yeah, I mean, he admitted when he was talking to us after the game, the nerves. He said he didn't sleep too well the night before. He said it was a moment he'd waited for his entire life. And you could see him just transitioning from nerves at the start to just him doing his like big fundamental old man game stuff. and that's what he does best at. And even when that just includes yamming on some dude's face. So, but, and everything he said after the game just reaffirmed, what I think, his approach just being exactly what we need, what I think Fred wants to hear and what the fans want to hear when it comes to, the guy who's definitely the face of the program for this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, were there any other newcomers that kind of made an impact, or that you noticed something you liked, or obviously the offense is pretty spread out. There was nobody else in double figures, only a few shots for guys, but a lot of guys at least made a play or two.
Yeah, I really liked Bandamel on one end of the court and really was uneasy with him on the other end of the court. I kind of did not like the way it looked with the ball in his hands, to be quite honest. Looked kind of wonky and awkward, but I definitely could see him filling the Trey McGowan's like perimeter active hands, like that role. He was definitely the most active guard defensively. His hands were all over the place. He had a couple steals, and that was definitely promising, but when he had the steal and he was kind of leading the break, I was just like, ooh, that does not look the best. But
you weren't alone in that, because I actually had a high school coach I know text me and say something like, it's like, yeah, you're right. It looks a little awkward with, I don't love the look of Bandamel with the ball in his hands, but he is solid offensive game. It was shot 3 of 6, 1 of 3 from 3, finished with 9 points, 2 assists, and just 1 turnover. So in general, I think he did his job. He had a couple of big shots. He was the one that after Chadron State came down and cut it to 6, he answered with a little pull-up elbow jumper, and that kind of started that 13-2 run where Sam Greasel took over after that. I don't know that Fred, that's the shot that Fred would have wanted to see in that situation, but he took it and he made it. Then he was the one that put the finishing touches on that 21-0 run also with a pull-up three from the top of the key before that led to the kind of the timeout and the substitutions there. So that was kind of his final play of the day. But I think he did his job, and what we saw in that game, I think that's probably about what we're going to see from him in general. He'll have a couple of games where he hits 2-3 threes. He'll have games where he goes 1 for 3 or 0 for 2 or something like that, and you're looking more of a defensive impact. I don't think he's a guy that's going to consistently shoot 40%, but he can hit enough of them that if it's a good day, he'll really kind of swing some things on that end.
I kind of tended to agree, and Fred was adamant about, like, you guys are gonna, like, don't think too much about the 3-point shooting. Derek and Sam kind of were the same. They were kind of adamant about, like, what were they, 6 for 23, 6 for 20 something. I don't remember 6 for 26 from 3. And like you said earlier, CJ having an off day definitely contributed to that. He had a couple good looks from his, from the corner, his favorite spot over there. I hated both the threes Keisei took. They were from the same spot. They were both off balance, and I looked at you and I was like, "What is he doing?" But when Fred said after the game that they only ran 2 plays, and then I was like, "These guys are all taking shots from the same spots. This kind of makes sense." So, I too am not going to put. I mean, I don't expect them to shoot the lights out ever. Personally, so 6 for 26, it's not pretty, but it's not, it's not that's not what I'd be pressing the panic button on.
So after one game, it's not something to press the panic button on, but it's also something where it's worth keeping an eye on. I see, again, Wilshire had an off day. He was 1 for 4. That's not typically, I don't think you're going to have that happen a ton. But beyond him, like, I think you'll get 2 to 3 threes a game from him more often than not. And then it's a matter of everybody else. I think Griesel and Bandamel will probably both be in the mid 30s. Bandamel will obviously, I think the volume will be a little bit different there. He'll be taking more of them. But I think you'll get enough from those guys over the long haul. The question is, what kind of shooter can Wilhelm Breidenbach be? I think that's the big one, especially that starting lineup. If you're going to start him at that 4 spot, he's got to be able to knock down threes. And he made one nice one from the corner, but his misses were pretty ugly. Yes. And so he shot very poorly last year. In the 10 games that he got to play. So that's a question. Like, okay, what kind of shooter is he? What kind of shooter is Gary going to be if teams continue to leave him open? And because that's going to be a question throughout, like, how do teams defend Nebraska and how do they counter that? And then Tominaga, we said going into the season, like, the important thing for him is going to be shot selection because he can shoot. He just took a lot of bad ones last year. And he didn't get some good looks in that game. Again, forced the 2 that he did hit a nice little pull-up jumper. Like, again, so, okay. Didn't have that. Didn't have the 2-pointer as his first bucket of the year. But that's another one where if he doesn't take the right shots, if he's not hitting a good enough percentage, it's going to be tough for him to hold on to that rotation spot. So those, I think, are probably Breidenbach, Tominaga, and Gary, I think, are the guys that you're looking at. Okay, what kind of shooting team is this going to be in terms of attempts and percentage and how teams are going to defend them? Denham Dawson didn't take a 3. Hoiberg said they put in a lot of work over the past year, and he's shooting well in practice on open looks. So he never found himself open on the perimeter with the chance to even look at the rim. So all we saw was the free throws and went two for 3 on those in the game. But that'll be another one that like, what does that look like if he gets left open? Can he make teams pay? But one game is nothing to worry about, and it's really hard to, because if they shot even okay, that game's not close at any point. They just missed a lot of open looks. I thought their first several threes were pretty good looks. They forced a few as the game went on, and again, even one or two of the ones they did make were kind of off the dribble looks. The Bandamel one that kind of, like I said, kind of capped things was one of those. But I'm firmly in wait and see mode when it comes to the shooting for this team.
Absolutely. And I think we've met our quota on talking about a game against the D2 team.
Yes.
We can do a quick little preview of Sunday. Nebraska making the return trip to Boulder, charity exhibition contest against Colorado. You may remember the Halloween Sunday afternoon matinee in Lincoln last year, where this team looked the best they looked all season in a game that didn't count. It's going to be a little different this time around, I think. Tad Boyle told our least favorite college basketball talking head and former Nebraska basketball opening night MC, Mr. Rothstein, that he thinks Colorado can be an NCAA tournament team this year. And he says they have 4 potential breakout players in KJ Simpson, Neek Clifford, Tristan Da Silva, and Lawson Lovering. As someone who had the pleasure of watching Colorado play twice last year, not just against Nebraska, I went to watch them play New Mexico in Boulder because of a good friend of mine and former coworker was on staff at New Mexico. I agree with 2 of those. I agree with Tad on 2 of those, and those would be 2 guys. They played well against Nebraska last year, and that's Neek Clifford and Tristan Da Silva. I think they could give Nebraska some problems on Sunday, to put it lightly. So
Da Silva is 6'9", power forward. Their leading returning scorer, averaged almost 9.5 a game last year. Shot 37% from 3, so he can step out and hit threes as well as score inside. Passes the ball decently well, kind of second team all Pac-12 guy. And then Clifford started 17 games last year, 6'6" guard. He gave Nebraska 12-8, I think, last season. Came in off the bench and did well in that game. And again, just kind of a bigger body wing type that we'll probably see guys like Gary or like Denham Dawson matching up with. So that'll be fun to see. You mentioned KJ Simpson. He did not play well against Nebraska last year. Was very inefficient as a freshman coming off the bench for them, kind of running the point, and made, I think, all Pac-12 freshman honors, but probably more to say about the freshman class out there than anything about him in particular. So I don't know about that. Like if they're going to need him to break out, because I don't know how many other like ball handlers they have. But and then Lawson Lovering was the 7-footer that came and played last year. Did not have a good first season. He's got a lot of work, I think, to do physically still. Came in pretty slight. And so that's a matchup that I like for Derek Walker. They hardly used him. He barely even played in the second half last in the first exhibition, because why not let Blaze and Oleg get some minutes there, because you know what you're going to get out of Derek. Made all 3 of his shots, so continuing the trend of last year, efficient play. But their key additions, they landed 2 transfer guards from the Ivy League, and Princeton's Ethan Wright, who scored almost 15 a game and shot almost 40% from 3, and Yale's Jalen Gabadon, who 6'5" guard, who scored 11 points a game, but did not shoot nearly as well as Wright. Not nearly the perimeter threat that he was. Shot under 30%. So kind of those are their 2 main additions. They added I guess their top freshman is Joe Hurlbert, a 6'10" center from North Dakota, kind of tail end of the top 150 for 24/7 Sports. Kind of a high 3-star there. So those are kind of the key additions. Otherwise, they're bringing it. They're kind of relying on some role guys from last year, and they're hoping that Da Silva will kind of step forward and have a breakout year.
Yeah, and Colorado plays tough. I know Fred loves talking about Tad Boyle's teams playing tough and how he saw that when Colorado was still in the Big 12, but he's not lying. They play hard. They're big bodies, 1 through 5, and they'll definitely provide a test. Obviously, just the quick trip and the altitude and everything. Fred talked about that too. The CU Event Center is basically a big hole in the ground. It's definitely a very 70s basketball setup. It's plenty of tickets available. If we have any listeners in the Colorado area, plenty of tickets available. I was looking yesterday and going to a good cause, obviously, with wildfire relief. The wildfires affected the surrounding areas of Boulder pretty bad within the last year. So, but from a basketball standpoint, this game is definitely going to be much more interesting than last year. And I have a feeling it could get chippy just from what I've seen from Colorado and, what I saw up close last year and how I think Nebraska wants to play. I think this game could get a little chippy.
Yeah, and this will be a much better test of kind of the new identity that Hoiberg wants this team to have in terms of the physicality, the defense, the crashing the glass on both ends. Chadron State didn't have the size to counter Nebraska's combination of trying to push the pace, leaking out after misses, and there wasn't much resistance. You could see a few of those offensive rebounds were just like, yeah, I'm bigger than you. I'm going to tap the ball to myself, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that won't be the case against another high major team like Colorado. So we'll see how much of kind of that stuff that we saw, that toughness, the points in the paint, the offensive rebounds, how much does that translate from playing against a D2 team to playing against another high major team, and one that's a pretty solid program in Colorado that coming off an NIT run. They made the tournament within the last few years. They've been a 20-win team under Tad Boyle the last handful. So,
and word through the grapevine is that they handled a pretty good Wyoming team in their secret scrimmage. So it is secret scrimmage season. Nebraska is instead playing 2 exhibition games.
Which I thank them for.
Well, yeah, which I thank them for as well. But the word on the street is that Colorado took care of business against a pretty good Wyoming team that was in the tournament last year. So I'll see how it looks like up close. Everybody else, they're doing an online stream.
Good news.
We thought that there was not going to be a stream up until the last couple days. Looks like they're setting up something with Pac12.com, Colorado, and you'll get the Colorado radio call if you watch on the stream. So look out for that. You can always listen to Kent and Jake on the radio. They'll be there, and I know they'll never hear that, but they'll appreciate the shout out if they heard it anyway. So yeah, Sunday at 5:00 Central Time, 4:00 Mountain Time, Nebraska and Colorado, and we'll have a recap for you the next time you hear from us.
Yeah, I'll have that link in my kind of preview that I'll have up on HailVarsity.com. Plan to write a little bit about Denim Dawson. Again, we heard from him after his first game in almost 2 years. So look for that this weekend, and then I'll have coverage of the game as well. So you can find all that work there at HailVarsity.com, and check your feeds again here next week, because we will come at you with another episode of Nebraska Shootaround. Not sure yet what day we're going to record. I'll have to figure that out, but we will have a live report. I guess it won't be live. You'll be back home by that, but we'll have a report from Bigelow, the boots on the ground report, the atmosphere, and how the altitude impacted him over there in the crowd.
I think I might do a Twitter space just for the fun of it. See how it goes. Just let the chaos reign in a Twitter space. Yeah, live boots on the ground from Boulder.
If they hadn't figured out a stream, I was going to make you just kind of Facebook Live the whole thing for me, so I could watch it. So you should feel free to go thank the Colorado SID.
I will do that. I dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. All right, we will talk at you again next week. Once we get kind of a final look at the preseason Huskers. and start gearing up for the real thing against Maine on November 7th, I believe. It's a Monday.
Yep.
So the season's almost here.